Tonight we'll talk about those terrible twins called noise and neurosis. And if you've never connected the two in your mind, start doing so immediately. Noise and neurosis. Clatter and something wrong inside. Clamor and a very, very faulty human being. They're very closely connected, as you'll see tonight. As you may know, there are organizations out in the world who devote their time and attention to just one subject. That is, going around and finding ways to cut noise out of the atmosphere. They go down the street and find out if there's some way in which the squeaking trucks can be eliminated, or in a factory where the clanging in an employee's ear can be reduced somewhat. This is their whole purpose, to go around all over the city and countryside and find ways to get rid of noise. And there's a good reason for it. As you already sense, your nature already senses the sensibleness of that. Scientists back that up, of course. They say you subject yourself to horrible noise in the form of music or, again, the factory. It can have a very serious effect on both your hearing and on your psychological state, your psychic system. And why? We're going to find out then what ordinary outside noise we're talking about now, just for the moment. We're talking about outside noise. Why? Simply because noise, as a definition, is unnatural sound. Just think of that and you'll see what sense that makes. Noise is unnatural sound. That is, it is unnatural to the human ear. It's not right. You ever had a dog yapping at your heels at a high-pitched little bark? Didn't sound right to you, did it? You ever had a siren in back of you, which they purposely make loud and uncomfortable, otherwise you wouldn't notice it? So a siren is unnatural sound, is it not? You ever been on a battlefield, some of you gentlemen? The cracking of the bullets and the roar of the cannon was unnatural to your ear. It was very unpleasant, wasn't it? And besides the presence of the bullets and shells, the very sound wasn't right to you, didn't come right to you. So we see that all noise, as far as human beings are concerned, is an unnatural sound of some kind. Now let's get a little closer to home. You know what exterior noises are. You're going to hear them even if you're seated here, because it's such a noisy world. It's as if everyone's running around with wooden shoes on a tin roof, and not just in Holland either. How's this for getting close to home? The unnatural sounds, the noise, the clamor of the human voice. Huh? Have you ever screamed? Ever sobbed? Ever whined? So you see, we have the habit of making sounds with our tongues, our mouths, which are an expression of an inner condition, right? And we're going to find out in a minute why that is so, but just a little bit more about the human voice. And I'm going to give you an example in a minute, and I will almost guarantee that you'll make a resolve, which you'll keep for 3 minutes. You'll make a resolve to make a study of your human voice so that you can see how it sounds to other people. Have you ever done that, by the way? All right, during the break or after the meeting, you pay attention to your voice as you speak to someone and see if you can give yourself a few facts about it. Is it low? Is it high? Is it nervous? And what is the psychology behind it? Is it a little frantic? Is it pleading? Is it fawning before someone? Is it unnatural in its own way in that it's too soft because you're talking with someone that you're afraid of, and so you deliberately keep your voice soft so as not to offend them? So they have no excuse at all for attacking you. I've described a lot of you. You do it all the time, don't you, with other people? Here's the story. I was in a supermarket, this was some time ago, in Los Angeles, and checking out at the check stand. And the lady right in front of me was a very attractive lady. Pretty. And there she was. And that impression came to me as I was checking out in back of her. And then when we all get a little bit closer to the checker, and she opened her mouth to talk to the checker, all her beauty vanished. Because I heard the high-pitched, whining voice of hers. And it was so clear to me, this is the reason I remember this all this time, the difference between the woman who was physically attractive and all of a sudden that beautiful delusion of mine was shattered by her voice and her words. You can be sure that she couldn't see the difference in her voice and how she appeared exteriorly. She might have thought that she was an attractive woman, but she had not done what was suggested to you a little bit ago. Just listen to yourself talk sometime, and you'd better get a list, because there's a lot of things you're going to leave out. The manner in which you speak, is it hesitant? Are you nervous in it? Are you afraid to talk to someone? Just put down 1, 2, 3, all your notes about your talking with people. I tell you, you could put down several hundred notes in there. For example, do you repeat yourself very often? Your pet phrases. Have you ever noticed someone else who has a pet phrase all the time? Up to a point, you can't do that. You have to use certain words in the English language over and over again. At the same time, you can catch yourself repeating certain phrases that make you feel comfortable because you can push the other person away maybe and get rid of them or whatever. Now here's the question, the big question of the evening. Inner noise, voices, clamoring emotions, clanging thoughts. Why? Why are we so noisy all the time? See, until you heard this subject, you weren't even aware of that, were you? Now you know. Now you have knowledge of it. Now you have to go into action with that knowledge. Don't forget the knowledge, or you won't be able to go into action over it. And you'll lose the point of the whole lesson, and you'll lose a certain very good work area by which you can raise yourself up to a much higher level. Okay, why do human beings love rackets, clamors, roarings inside their psychic system? This is going to be a revelation to you now. What a revelation, and what a point indeed. A new area for you to begin to ponder, to think about, and bring it right into your everyday work to reach a higher place inside yourself. To understand why we prefer noise to silence, we have to understand the purpose, one purpose, of natural sound. One purpose of natural sound is communication. When you were speaking to other people before the meeting, you were talking to them, perhaps calmly and no particular agitation, but you were talking back and forth in order to communicate with each other, to exchange knowledge, to understand each other. Were you not? You were all doing it before the meeting or any other time. So we communicate in order to make things clear, to understand each other, to advance ourselves at least on the human level. Right communication, therefore, is quiet, orderly, mature, so that the message can go through. There's no noise in it. Therefore, the very silent communication is a form of help, is it not? You're communicating with each other in order to inform each other of certain facts which you each find necessary. Now here it is. Noise, neurosis, noisy neurosis is a very alert and active ally of the darkness that covers the earth. Noise is deliberately used, deliberately, unconsciously, I might add, if you can understand that. They have deliberately chosen to stay in darkness, in sleep, in noise. Because when there is a racket going on in the voice, in the mind, in the emotions, there can never be any kind of communication. There can never be any understanding. There can be no growth. Why do you suppose people get angry at the truth? Why do you suppose people scream at each other in arguments? Now you think this through. Because noise is a weapon. And it is far more than a dark weapon just to get your way in an argument with another human being. Far more than that. What preferred neurotic noise of voice and of mind and of feeling, what it amounts to is a deliberate attempt to cut off the communication, the transfer of truth, for example, that could occur in silence. Have you ever had an argument with another person and screamed at him and her? You know very well there was no insight in that. There was no understanding. There was just screaming, right? Now do you see why you scream so much, all over and all in? Because you have not understood, and what you're understanding tonight, that racket, clamor, din, all that has been an unconscious ally to the parts of you that want to stay sick. They have now been exposed. You can now see how people actually prefer to keep all this roaring going on inside their life, because it keeps, among other things, their sense of identity going and their sense of rights going, screaming at the top of their voice for their demands, for what other people should give them. And all the time it is nothing more than their choice, through choosing noise, to drown out anything that might reveal them as the sleeping human beings which they are and which they do not want to face and see and correct. Clear? It's like a man who says he likes music. And by the way, there's a difference in music too, isn't there? Haven't you been trapped as a captive audience in a cafe or at a gas station or something where the radio was blasting out? That kind of music is part of the insanity, isn't it? Part of the great plan of distracting you, of keeping you so nervous by its blasting in your ears. How can you think about anything when that's attacking you? There's also quiet music. There's also pretty music, is there not? So of music that you feel right about. That's another talk too. But imagine a man who tells you that he likes music. He's a music lover. Maybe he's a musician even. So he hears an invitation to go down to a concert hall to hear the kind of music he likes. Great opportunity. This is what he wants to do. Go down to hear music. So he goes down to the concert hall, and when the director gets up and taps his baton on the wood there and gets the musician's attention, and the music starts playing, he pulls out his high-pitched flute and starts playing too. Oh, a different song, incidentally. Music comes to an end, starts another one. He plays his own kind of music. See, he didn't want to hear music at all. He said he did. What he wanted to do was make his own sounds, which he called music, so that he could be the great musician. He doesn't care to receive anything. He wants to create something in which he can be the center of his own attention, in which he can drown himself out and always say, look what I'm doing. I am living my own life. I don't depend on those other musicians. I'm creating my own music, and he's driving himself mad. Are you following this so far? And you see the importance of understanding it, the importance of carrying out the little exercise, the one or two that you've been given so far? So we see that very, very subtly, noise has dominated our lives. Not just the squeaking tires out there, but what's going on inside. The Cure. Do you like The Cure? Let's see whether you want it or not. Here it is. Would you dare to endure having a moment of quiet happiness? Will you follow? Do you think that maybe tomorrow, better yet tonight, you will be able to endure a little split-second moment of quietness in your mind? Or is it going to scare you? Look, you're rattling on in your head. You're talking to yourself all the time, are you not? And answering yourself, which is worse. Arguing with yourself. Striking up foolish conversations with other people. You have nothing better to do with yourself. You know, I watch you all the time, and I think it's a dreadful shame that you can't sit quietly here and enjoy your own company. You must be wretched company to yourself to always have to be running around blabbing with someone else where it's not necessary. Now back to the point. Now listen. You see, we're dominated by the clamor, by the roar. This has become our way, our preferred way. We're in love with it, not knowing it, of course, because we don't understand anything about ourselves, what we're trying to do. There can be the opportunity at any time you want to suddenly withdraw from the world while being right in the middle of it, and withdraw from your own noisy mind. But I have told you, this is your way of life and you have known no other. Which is why I ask you, will you dare to endure, in spite of the great pain it gives your old nature, will you dare to endure 1 minute, 1 second even, of silence? You don't know what I'm talking about because you've never done it. And already your noisy nature is talking to you. And it is lying to you. because it wants to keep you just as wretched as you've always been. Your arguments with people in your mind, you went through a dozen of them just this day. Remember that person you argued with? You know what I'm talking about. How about the noise of nervousness? How many of you were nervous today? All of you raise your hand. You catch the eye of another person and you don't know quite how to act, so you get noisy, don't you? What should I say? What do I do? See? Huh? So with all this understanding, will you sometime, very soon, relax and sit back and first of all be very, very noticeable, make it noticeable, of your condition at the moment, that you're actually roaring, agitated inside. That's the first step. Then this deliberate conscious defiance that we've talked about before can enter the picture. By seeing it and by not trying to quiet it. Don't you dare try to quiet it, because that's another noisy individual inside you trying to quiet another noisy individual by yelling, "Be quiet." Two idiots yelling back, "Be quiet, be quiet, be quiet." But simply notice the racket inside and let them do what they want while you say stay separate and silent. How's that for beginning to withdraw from the world? How's that for beginning to see something different that the world will never know anything about? Because they want to fight and they want to attack, don't they? They want to hurt people. And we've seen the folly of that anyway. So you can just sit back and let the fight go on as loud as it wants. Don't you suppress anything. Let the two idiots go on and on and on as much as they want, and I'll tell you what will happen. This is spiritual magic. They will go on yelling at each other for a while, and after a while, this is somewhat of a figure of speech which you will understand. After screaming at each other for a while, they will suddenly become aware that there is something watching them who is not a part of them, and they will become scared. Because they're cowards. Noise is always cowardly. They will become scared of being observed by you, by something that is not really you understand. And little by little, over a period of time, as you work in this way, they will depart. Then they'll come in the back door and start all over again. But all the time, they will become aware that you are not taking a part in their arguments. And if they say, well, if we're not welcome here, we'll go find someone else, and they will. They've got the whole world. And they will begin to leave you alone, because they don't, the last thing, why does a criminal go out and burglarize houses at night? He doesn't want to be seen, right? Why do robbers cover their faces with masks? They don't want to be seen, observed, identified. And when your watchfulness identifies these noisy screamers inside you, they know that you're a cosmic policeman, and they don't want to get caught, and so they'll depart from you eventually after long hard work. Now, there's a second stage to that, a much deeper one, in which you, having faithfully completed your work over a long time, as I said, you will begin to have this natural spiritual silence inside you. You will feel it, you will know it, you'll be so quiet right in the middle of a crowd down at the corner of 5th and Main Street. The noisy cars and the yelling people, you'll be very quiet, and you'll understand your own quietness right in the middle of the crowd or in a crowded room at a party or whatever. You will be living your quietness while all the racket is going on out there. But here's the main point. As you know, you have many features inside your psychological, spiritual system. You have thoughts and reactions, and you have words, and you have moods. You have many things inside you. As the silence descends inwardly on you, because each one of these parts takes part in the silence, they now begin to communicate back and forth with each other and to give each other valuable spiritual information. Your mind will speak to your feelings. Your feelings will speak to your body. Your body will speak to your voice. It all goes back and forth. You understand? Each one of these silent parts, which is true knowledge, which is true spirituality, says something like this. It says, now, I have learned certain things about myself. I have matured. Let's say a certain thought is saying that. And being a right thought, it is very generous and very expressive, very outgoing. And a certain right thought will speak, for example, to your voice. And the right thought will say something like this: I have learned that to be quiet is to be rightly rewarded. I've learned to be quiet is one aim of life. And I've noticed, voice, that you haven't learned that as yet. And I want to tell you that it would be great value if you will join the rest of us in learning to be quiet. Now, the voice, which also took a part in this quietness, doesn't get mad at the advice like it used to. Remember how mad we get when someone tries to tell us something? But it is a part of this learning. It's a part of the quietness, and it's very glad to get this information. And it says, the voice says to the thought, to the quiet thought, thank you so much. I never knew that. What else have you learned that I haven't, that you could tell me so I could have that too? Thank you. Then when the voice learns something, it'll say it to the feelings, maybe to the facial expressions. That's a part of us, isn't it? This is the beauty of it. God is everywhere, right? Not only in the world, but inwardly, and occupying all the parts that have made room for him. So all these parts are now cooperate with each other in making us whole and including silence and quietness in that. Final thought. Quietness is wisdom itself. What is neurosis? What is self-defeat? Noise which is far away from the kingdom. Therefore, screaming has no intelligence, no power of communication, only the power to hurt. Therefore, as the negative parts of us fall away, leaving only the true parts, it also leaves a feeling of rightness. A feeling that you'll say, at last I know the meaning of life. And the meaning of life is for me to grow up, to grow mature, to really grow spiritual, to get rid of tormenting myself. And I've already made progress in that, and I'm going to make more progress. And so you do a beautiful thing for yourself and for everyone else whom you contact by inviting more quietness and its supreme wisdom. Imagine a sparrow caught in a tornado, and you'll have a perfect picture of the human mind when it's confronted with something outside of itself called truth. The human mind, as it presently operates, is unable to receive, understand, and act upon higher principles. And one of the most rejected and bewildering principles of truth is the following, and let's see how your mind takes it. In this world, to win is right. To gain is right. In this world, with the human mind. To gain is the only thing, to acquire, to accumulate, to build up your personal life, your material possessions. Winning is what counts. In this authentically spiritual life, the only kind of worthwhile life that there is that any human being can find, then losing is winning. Losing everything that you now value that is keeping you in the tornado. Now look, already the utter reversal of the process. See how difficult it is for you to grasp? Because you, all your life, and everyone you've associated with, has pressed down upon your mind the idea that accumulation is the way of life. This is the way you're happy. This is the way you're secure. And to lose, according to the world, is the enemy. Something higher than the human mind says to lose everything that you now call right and valuable is the one way to be a free and truly decent, happy human being. Who have you been believing up till now? What have you been accepting as right and as true to this point of your life? You know what it is. You know how you want to go out and get things. And the very idea of loss terrifies you, because you've taken everything you've accumulated as being you, part of your nature, part of your identity, and you'll fight for it. You'll hurt others for it. Nothing counts but to hang on to what you have. And what you have is nothing. What you have is something that's so temporary, so foolish, so empty. When you come into the presence of truth, you are told, now is the time to start doing the opposite, the exact opposite of what you've been doing all your 30, 40, 80 years. What a shock that is to the mind. So shocking that most people push it away. You are told, instead of adding to your vanity, to lose it. Instead of adding to what you call your security, to lose everything that you call your security. You've never had real security anyway. You're told to let go of every hope you have that tomorrow is going to be better. You're told to just let loose of everything that you're hanging on to, including your painful thoughts, including all your antagonism which you hide so cleverly, but which your own nature knows about and suffers from. So when you enter the realm of truth, of course you're going to be shocked by it. You're going to say, what's this? No one ever said that before, so how can it be right? You don't understand how badly you have been lied to by society all your life. You have been deceived so badly that you take it as being normal. You're taking the abnormal as being normal. You're taking the false as being true, and when truth finally gets a little bit of light into your mind, just a little bit at the start, you begin to think that that is wrong. It has to be wrong because it's new, because it's unfamiliar. So you reject it and become frightened of it, push it away, and continue with your own scramble and nervousness to build yourself up and never, never resting. Correct? You don't have any rest. You know it, and I know it. And I'm trying to explain to you tonight why you don't have any rest and why you never will. Until you begin to let truth teach you the opposite of what falsehood has been teaching you, and which you have unconsciously and unknowingly accepted as being right for you. I am telling you that the accumulation of ego benefits is wrong for you. Now, it couldn't be put simpler than that. I'm telling you that all the things you think that are holding you in place, they're keeping you in a very nervous place, a very uncertain place. Everything that makes you angry, that you value your anger, that is, and you cling to that. Even your anger and your fear becomes a part of your treasure. What kind of a treasure is that? The main point I want to make up to this point is I want you to know how unwilling the human mind is, yours and millions of people around the world, how unwilling they are to go through the storm until they come out on the other side and see that it was right for them after all. What is right in your life now? Come on, I'm asking you to examine while I'm talking to you. What is correct in your life at this very moment that you're seated here? Can you call bewilderment correct for you? Can you call your anxiety and your jitteriness, can you call that a correct way of life? There's no way you can do that. Now, this is what you have as a result of believing what everybody told you. I'm telling you, everybody was wrong. Your teachers, which include all the people you associated with, that you picked up habits from unconsciously, that you picked up their ways, they were wrong. And because you didn't know any better at the time, they made you wrong. You can now, beginning tonight, begin to know better. But here's the major problem. When you tell people that they must begin to lose in order to win, when you tell them that they have to let go of everything that is falsely valuable to them, they become frightened. As a matter of fact, they become so terrified that they turn off their minds completely and don't really hear any more of the truth that might be said to them. They leave mentally, even when they stay where a lecture like this is being given. They've closed their minds because they're afraid that you're going to take away their life. Now, listen carefully. When you're told that you must lose your life in order to find your life, that is the truth. That is a fact. You must lose your present life, temporary life, in order to find a new life, eternal life. Now, I want you to carry out the following exercise as often as possible. When you hear that you must abandon your present identity, your present ways, in order to find something that is utterly different and peaceful, when you're told that, you will hear a loud scream of objection inside you. This will be the fear self objecting, talking back, screaming its protest, and telling you, don't you let me go. Now listen, please. What I'm telling you is an advanced lesson, and don't think it's quite so simple for you to grasp as it is for me to say and explain with words. Now, the reason I tell you that, because I don't want you to think that it's something you can grasp overnight. It's something you'll have to work with for a long, long time. All right, back to it. When you are distressed, when you are angry, when you are confused by any incident, no exceptions, that is your refusal at that moment to give up your false riches. Now, will you remember that? When you have malice towards someone, when you're stubborn and you insist fiercely on your way, when you yell at people, leave me alone, I don't want to hear you. When you're distressed in any way at all, now that's easy to describe, isn't it? Distressed in any way at all. That is a certain part of you that is fearful that something is going to be taken away from you, something that you have called right. It is my duty right now at this moment to tell you that you have no rightness in you at all. You never have had. Furthermore, you will never ever have any rightness that belongs to you personally. All you can ever do in the future, speaking of time consciously, all you can do in the future is to have a goodness that lives through you. What the world and what your neighbors and what your hostile people call their goodness and righteousness is simply darkness, which they insist is light, so that they can say, I exist, and I exist as an individual who knows the difference between right and wrong, and I am right and everyone else is wrong. So please remember the point up to this point, that you have a fierce self in you, that when it's told it must let itself go, that it must have no existence now as it has always had, when you must simply let the whole business of your life go, and you can start even if you don't understand what that means, you will hear a fierce self screaming protest inside of you. And if you can begin to catch that, then you can go on to the stage of carrying your right actions out against that, which is to see it there and understand that it being a part of your past, a part of the time, your time system. When you see that it has no power at all, which it really doesn't, then you sit back quietly and you see all these accusations against the false part of you that says, if you desert me, you will be in trouble. Don't you listen to that threat. Don't you take any threats, accusations, hostilities as ever being right for you, whether they come from you or they come from another human being. You walk away. You don't have to pay attention to them. Do you ever think of that? You ever stop to think that you don't have to pay attention to what's tormenting you? That you can walk away? Well, I'll tell you, you can learn to walk away. Right here in this hall, you can learn the precise method for walking away from all these bandits and all. Shall I make it stronger? All these fiends who torment you, don't they? And you watching this film, they torment you too, don't they? I know they do. We're telling you here how to get rid of them. And to put it in a certain way. Why don't you take a vacation from yourself? Wouldn't that be the delight of your life? Well, you know what an ordinary summer vacation is, don't you? Oh, what a horror. See, you smile because you recognize what goes on. You pack the car with people and water bags, picnic baskets, blankets. You hope you have enough money. And you go out and you have the most wretched time of your life, camping out, camping in, seeing the seashore, seeing the mountains. And you are compelled to do it. You say, I've got to go out and enjoy myself. It's the old American way. Of course it is. The old American and otherwise wretched way. And you get out there, and it's, have you ever noticed there's no end of work? If you're not driving, you're packing. If you're not packing, you're unpacking. And you never do get that tin up right, do you? Look. Isn't it, look, you know, you're sitting at home and you've got your little travel folder in front of you, the maps of where you're going to go, the beautiful pine woods out there. You go out there, you go on all this work, and think of the money alone. And you go out there and the tent finally gets up, the 5 kids finally get settled some way, and you're lying down there on the pine needles, poking your ear. and it's very difficult for you to say, I'm having a wonderful time. I hope I have ruined your enthusiasms for that kind of a vacation. That is madness. Called loving the great outdoors. The great outdoors doesn't need your company. And also the squirrels would be happier if you did. A spiritual vacation is quite another matter. And one beautiful characteristic of it is that you not only travel alone, but you don't mind it. You not only travel alone, but you 1,000 times prefer it that way. Because you've seen in your inner life how other people can latch on to you, drag you down. Haven't you noticed that your friends always want something from you? They never want to think for themselves. Of course, you do the same thing to them, and you don't see that. You travel all alone, and it's very beautiful because you know what you have done, and what you have done is you have resigned from society, and it's madness. You actually have, psychologically, spiritually, inwardly, you've resigned. If you have. If you haven't, submit your resignation tonight and make it final. Don't go back and apologize and pay your dues back again and say, I want back in. They'll smile and take your money and know they've got another one. A spiritual vacation starts right where you are. Whatever condition you're in right now, you see, you're not asked to change anything. You're asked to start right where you are, to begin to watch yourself and watch other people and see how foolish you have been about their inner life. Just as you foolishly envy someone who goes out and makes himself miserable on that 3-week camping trip, you do the same thing inwardly, and you would vow, because you're so confused, that other couple down the street is really happy and you're not. You actually believe that they're rich. They're not rich. They're poverty-stricken. They really are. They don't have anything of value. But you don't know that, and I'll tell you why. One reason why. The other 100 reasons would take too much time. One reason why is because you live only in your miserable little world, and you don't even have the capacity to see the unhappiness of other people. You're the only one who counts. You're the only one you're concerned with. You're utterly wrapped up in yourself, and you're not really concerned with the happiness or unhappiness of anyone else. Spiritual wisdom in the early stages consists of just going about your daily life, in business, at home, walking the street, in the cafe, and being very watchful of the attitudes, beliefs, emotions, facial expressions of everyone you see, with one great purpose in mind: for you to destroy the last bit of delusion you have that other people are content, that they're free, that they have it made. This is going to take not only hard work on your part, but it's going to take a good deal of daring. And you listen now. What do you think is going to be your reaction when you study other people for 6 months or a year or 5 years until you are absolutely, finally convinced that no one you know is happy in the smallest way? What do you think is going to happen to you? It's going to shake you, isn't it? You're going to say, I wish I hadn't seen this. Because before I had at least my hopes that maybe that man, he made a lot of money and I thought he was happy. Or that woman, she had a lot of friends, a lot of social activities, and I thought she was happy. If you see that the whole world is groveling, beaten, defeated, depressed, and very, very hostile. When you see that, you will react, well, if this is the dark way it is, what hope is there for me? And that was a lying part of you speaking. Oh, but you're so used to believing in false voices. You're so accustomed to taking anything you hear yourself say as true, as final, as right, as something you can trust. Want another reversal? The first reversal was that you should lose, not win. Second reversal is to not believe anymore in the upstart, malicious, insolent, deceptive voices coming right from your own mind. Where do you think the problem is coming from? There's no problem outside of your confusion. So reverse it. Instead of believing in yourself, try sometime disbelieving in yourself until you see that just as it's true that everyone out there is lost, so are you. Now that's not a bad thing. It is not harmful to see that you have never known what life was all about. That is a good thing for you to see, because this is the turning point. There can be no turning point until you get over your delusion that you're okay. You're not okay. You know you're not okay, don't you? You know how mixed up you are. You know how hard you make it on yourself and on other people. Don't you know that? So take a vacation from yourself in that you can stand back and study yourself and study life and not believe in what you see, but rather let your perception of the facts tell you what it's all about. Let your perception of the facts tell you, for example, that there's no one out there who can help you. They can't help themselves. So you're going to lose faith in your human helpers, aren't you? And it's about time. Will someone take care of that, please? What are you going to do but let go of everything you've trusted? Let go of everything inside of you that's been deceiving you all this time. There's a story of a famous teacher who was known all around the world for knowing the answers to life, for being able to help people when they came to him for problems, with their problems. So because he was very well known, hundreds of people came to him daily, one at a time. So all day long, this great wise man received visitors who came. And their questions had a wide range as there were visitors. For example, one woman would ask, how can I raise my children properly? A man would ask about finances. A couple would ask about how can we handle an unexpected crisis in our life. Hundreds of people came and asked him questions. He had one answer. One answer only. And here's what he said to everyone who came to him. What does that question have to do with you facing yourself as you actually are? You want to raise your children right. You want to do anything right. Face yourself as you actually are. And out of that will come the wisdom and the knowledge that will answer 10,000 questions. Any question, any problem you have, truth will answer it if you approach it and let it approach you. You gave a great point, and I know you all felt it as well as heard it, when he mentioned the great freedom of not having to save anyone. How many here really understand that you are not responsible for anyone else on earth? Now, I'm not talking about parents and their children and things like that. Obviously, you are. I'm talking about spiritual matters. I'm talking about even your own children. If they don't listen to what you want to tell them, where is your responsibility if they refuse? But I'll tell you, this old guilt devil is so deep, so malicious. Let me tell you what you are doing. Anytime you feel guilty over not being able to help someone else, you are a false god in your own eyes. How come God like me can't save that person? Something wrong with you. And oh, what a liberty. Look, what a liberty to let every human being on earth go. I'm writing a book on that now, a very short book. You'll see some very good answers to the world in it eventually. All right, do you have questions, comments? We have a long time yet.
Exactly what you were talking about earlier happened to me today. I was sitting in a restaurant and I looked around and I could feel the waves of unhappiness coming from everybody there. And I knew that nobody there would ever want to see that. And it frightened me a little to see it.
You know, when you are free in your own spirit, you can go into that cafe where there are 50 gloomy people. You can go to your relative's house if you have to for some practical reason. There are these 20 depressed, dejected, boastful people sitting around talking about guess who, each one eager to talk about himself. Your spirit is free wherever you go. There's no way the world can ever take you over again. You have fallen for it so many times. Let's say 50,000 times. You've fallen for it 50,000 times. And the 50,001 time it happened, you managed to stay awake and felt the beauty of it. That remark that your sister made, that friend made, that has no meaning to you. You even carry on a conversation with them free from them because you know what's going on inside of them, because you know that brother or sister used to be you, right? And you know they used to be you because this is the way you used to be. And by some miracle, you changed. You're weak. You're weak because you're not sure
of the ground you're standing on. I am here to tell you the ground you're standing on is as solid as the earth under this building. But you don't know that. And you are indeed wishy-washy. And you look around hoping for a friend, hoping for a smile, hoping that no one will be curt to you, hoping that they're not going to call you stupid, hoping that they're not going to ridicule you. What are you doing thinking thoughts like that? All pain is wrong. All anxiety is wrong for you. Now get out of that if you can. You can't. The ground is solid, but you want to trust some human charlatan smiling at you, conning you, appearing to be mild. Oh, you had better become an expert in recognizing human demons when you see one. And I'll tell you that all lost people are demons. No exceptions. What does that make you? Dominated, at least, by dark thoughts? All right, let the light glow, that little bit of light you have that keeps bringing you back here time after time, so that your feet are so solid. You can walk right through the human jungle of the world, which you do, walk right through it. And what does it have to do? You're not living in time where tomorrow has to be what you demand. You're okay now. You're okay right now. Then you can go out and handle the world the way it should be handled, using your logic, using your knowledge of human nature. Then you can handle the world, but its outcome is not going to have an effect on you. Let me tell you, when you are free and right inside yourself, you can be anywhere out in that world, and any time you choose, you can walk on home. You can't do that now. You're trapped. You're cut off from home by your own delusions, by your own wondering, how did I ever get into this spot? And why isn't it better? Would you like to just be able to walk on home anytime you want? You can. Stop being falsely kind. You do it, you know, to promote your own phony image of being kind. You're not kind. You're not gentle. You're fierce. But you want the other people to think that you're gentle, so they'll be gentle with you. And there's certain advantages, aren't there, in having other people think you're okay. Maybe they give you their money. Maybe they give you a gift of some kind. Maybe they do a favor for you. You're con people. I've told you, you cut off the favors of this world altogether. Don't you want anything from them. You'll be able to walk on out and go home anytime you want, empty-handed. And this is not religious talk, what I'm going to say next. You won't be empty. You'll have the Spirit of truth itself with you all the time. You'll never be lonely again. You're lonely now. You're lonely because you want other people to come around and take it away from you, don't you? They're not going to do it. Whenever you get someone to take away your loneliness, the first thought you have toward them is hostility in case they leave you. Why don't you let the world leave you? Why don't you leave the world? Make it a mutual deal. When you leave the world will leave you because it wants nothing to do with you. And you want nothing to do with the world. It's a pretty good arrangement, isn't it? I'm staying away from you, and they'll stay away from you if you really have light, because they hate the light. Let me bring something out. The last year or so, we've done a lot of publicity, haven't we? Oh, we've sent out tens of thousands of mailings and thousands of posters, radio, television, word of mouth. We've done an awful lot to tell people that we're here, right? Now, I happen to be the head of the organization, right? My name goes out a whole lot, right? Do you know that if it wasn't for Joan, I wouldn't even need a telephone? Here's what I'm saying. Now, look, really, my phone number rings. You know, I hear it rings. I say, "What's that?" Yeah. Here's what I'm saying. Even malicious people, people who don't want this, they never phone me and hate me. They don't phone, you know. Are you getting this at all? No, you're not getting it? Look, I'm telling you that nobody ever phones me and says, "You charlatan." You know, not. And you think they'd be hitting. You phoned me once and called me a charlatan, and we 10,000 miles over that wire, something's going to happen to you. I'm serious, and that is why my phone is silent. I know it. I'm talking about a very, very high spiritual law. Yeah, I'm afraid it was too much for you. You better follow me close. I'm going fast.
I think the man that asked, cross-examined Chuck Sunday kind of sensed that, and that's why I didn't.
Would you start over, please?
Remember the man that sat in the front row?
Yeah, sure.
Cross-examined Chuck?
Sure.
Okay, I think he sensed that. I think he cross-examined Chuck instead of cross-examining you, because he knew what he was...
That was very good. That was a good explanation of what I was talking about. Contribution, I should say. Yeah. You fool around with truth, you're in danger. You're in danger anyway, because you're apart from it. Who is that? Yeah.
I don't know whether I should tell this or not, but when I first started attending classes, I was arguing with part of what you had said at home. And I had a brand new electric razor in my hand, and it fell out of my hand and fell on the floor. I picked it back up and started shaving again and continued to argue with you, and it fell out of my hand again. I quit arguing.
Earlier in the lecture, you said that that people out there are not happy, and sometimes I think that maybe ignorance is bliss, and sometimes I think that they don't know that they're not happy.
Of course they don't know that they're unhappy, because now listen, to the world, misery is happiness. How many depressed people do you know? A whole lot, right? You got a long list, right? Depressed, dejected, their eyes are downcast and their heads are, and they mutter their way through life. They're looking around, they're talking like they don't even know they're talking, they're going out there. That is their idea of heaven, and here is why. Because everything centers around them. Heaven, to an egotist, is his own total self-reference. That's what heaven is. That heaven is hell. Don't you know this then? All right. Are you beginning to escape hell just a little bit then through these teachings, through the truth? I am hell. That is the statement of everyone. But they don't know that. They call it heaven. The heaven of many human beings is to hurt other human beings. You ever hurt anyone and got a sick pleasure out of it? Okay, there you go.
When you say give up everything, everything you possess, it means material things and everything, Vernon.
Well, look, losing everything losing everything means losing your belief in ideas which seem to give you a separate existence. If you lose your delusory beliefs in your own ego, that is losing everything. All you've got now is your false personality, your acquired ideas, beliefs, convictions. This is what you call your riches, which is poverty. To lose everything then means to die. He that first loseth his life shall find his life. There it is. Half-hour talk could have been just to that, right? He wants to find eternal life, must lose his time life, his temporal life. See, here's the problem with what I just said. It went into your mind. All you have is a mind. You have nothing but that. You have a body. We're not talking about that. All you have is a mind, a thought. And thought, feeling endangered by statements such as I just made, immediately counterattacks in many different ways. Walls up, assertions to the contrary, deliberately going into dullness, and in that dullness you have an escape. You say, I don't get it. Even that is a lie. See, you even do that, I don't get it. That's a dramatic form of a lie. So now you say, I'm confused. All right, if you're confused, then you don't have to understand what you don't want to understand, right? So it hits your mind. And as long as what I say hits your mind only, you never will understand it. Because thoughts cannot understand eternity. What you can do is understand what I just said, and as thoughts fade out as the answerers, then the spirit in you will respond to the spirit in me and will know exactly together what we're both talking about. And we're not trying to figure out a thing. There's instantaneous comprehension. Huh? You know that what I said is right, don't you? Sure you do.
Gloria and I recently visited Disneyland.
Yes.
And I saw one of the class lessons while we were there, and that is that my job was to stay awake in that sea of people, and by being awake, I would be nonviolent, or I would be approaching nonviolence.
Yes.
And it's absolutely necessary to be nonviolent in this sea of humanity.
Correct. Why add to it? Have you ever done that, by the way, what I suggested in the talk, and many other times, but you forget? Sit on a bench somewhere, park, or beach, Disneyland, wherever, anywhere, sit on your front porch, and just watch people go by. Just look at their faces, and you'll see the whole world there that we've talked about, how lost people are. The man's looking ahead, his cigarette's going like that, you know. His face is empty. That woman walking down the street and his head's like that. She doesn't know where she is. And where she is in Australia, right? In business. What? People are coming to your business. See whether they're asleep and awake. Now that won't be hard to figure out, will it? Another way. Notice how timid and afraid people are to approaching you, whoever you may be, anyone. Everyone is afraid of everyone else. So watch how once they search your face, won't they? You can see them coming the other side. They're already watching you, looking. Is he friendly? Is he fierce? What mood is he in? Now come on. And the closer they get, the more they pray that you're going to look up and see them and smile. You miserable little wretch. It would never occur to cowards like you to smile to them first. You're too self-centered to do that. It never occurred to you to put him at ease. He should put you at ease. Now you just remember what I said and see how you're always wanting the other person to make the first move toward friendliness. Why don't you break out of your big, thick shell?
Connected with what you were talking about, a man came into my office today who is a rancher. And I happened to look up while we were doing some work with some papers, and he looked at me with a clear, honest expression. And it just about shocked me out of my seat. I haven't seen anything like that for years.
Well, every once in a while you get surprised when someone tells you the truth about something.
You stirred up a lot, excuse me, you stirred up a lot when you were talking about the compulsion of vacations. Because I can remember back to years ago when there was a part of me that didn't want to go and might have been afraid to go on vacation. But the stronger part said, you've got to go, you can't be alone. And what will people think if you take your vacation and don't go somewhere? And the whole thing was such a prison, it was terrible.
The reason people go on vacations is because they are incapable of being happy at home.
Right.
Write that down. Send it to all the tourist bureaus in America.
People get more pleasure out of talking about their great vacations and bragging about it when they get back than they do certainly going on their vacation.
And all the films you have to look at. Do you really care that there are 3 bridges over the River Brine? 3 bridges over the River Kwai? You don't really care, do you? You don't really care about anyone else, do you? You don't care about anyone else. You big phonies, you come up and you inquire about their health and how they're doing. How's your kids? You don't care how their kids are. You don't care about how your own kids are. You don't care about anything. All you care is about food, money, and sex. Yours.
At work today, I noticed a conversation between 2 ladies who were saying that they were concerned about a third person. And they kept repeating, I'm really concerned about it. And they were really feeding off of her tragic situation. And I saw myself starting to get drawn into it.
Did you catch yourself in time?
Yes.
Well, let's try something. Let's see what happens. Come on, let's see what happens. How many of you love another human being? You'd better not raise your hand. Rudy? I thought Juan was pointing at Rudy. Who's the one human being you love madly?
I was surprised this weekend. My mother called me and a situation came up where she asked me to send her some money. And I would have normally done it, but I just paused just to see what would take place. And I was very shocked at the tricks that she, being my mother, tried to pull on me in the situation just to get money from me. And I ended up not giving it to her, and then, of course, had the guilt. But I'll tell you, just from learning from what you've said in this class, even your closest relative can be the most shocking to you.
Relatives? May heaven save us from all of them. Go ahead, Phil.
I'm sure there's a happy medium between making someone else at ease and not being phony false images and not promoting phony false images and false personality.
What was the first part of your statement?
Putting someone at ease, like you spoke about, smiling first.
Yeah, I'll tell you. It is good and right to leave the world alone. Leave the world alone. Get away from them. You can be alone right in the middle of the factory if you want. What's that got to do with you, all that activity going around? You know what I'm talking about, don't you? You know your best friends hate you. Your best friends hate you. You know why? That's all they can do. It's not you necessarily, especially. Don't brag that you're hated. They hate everyone. And they'll snap at you. Your deliverance from yourself depends upon you knowing of the utter corruption of human beings. 1,000 times worse than you think. People have no conscience at all. And they don't know they have no conscience because they call it something else. At death, such people cease to exist. Time shall not inherit eternity. You have a mind with all these thoughts about how great you are, how marvelous you are, how loving you are, how kindly you are. When you die, what happens to those thoughts about yourself? Do you continue to recreate them? Never mind future hell. Pay attention to this one right here. The insanity of so-called religious people thinking that upon their death they are going to go to a pure and peaceful place. If they are there, how can it be pure and peaceful? How can hell turn into heaven?
In the religious teachings, you're always taught that your spirit will go into heaven. We're talking here about all the false things we are, that upon death, if we do not have truth, they die. But what about the spirit?
Would you start over, please?
All right. In religious teachings, we're taught we have a spirit, and this is what goes to heaven or hell or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're talking here about all of these images that we have of ourselves, that upon death, they too are dead. But is the spirit also dead? Or is there no spirit if we don't have truth?
All right. Listen. There is just one thing that survives death. As a matter of fact, the term and act death has no meaning to it. The only thing that has eternity is God. All right. God's spirit. All right? Do you have God's spirit, or do you have mental identities tonight? Mental identities are not God's spirit. But the so-called religious people say I to their accumulation of thoughts. I, a Christian. I, a believer. I, a good worker for charity, and all the other malicious imaginations that they have. And they say that idea of goodness will endure. But ideas are time. There's no reality, no permanency to them all. There's no permanence in you as you now are. As a matter of fact, you do die 50,000 times a day, assuming you think of 50,000 thoughts and they die. Do they not die? But you, instead of using thought for practical purpose, recreate yourself, your I, and you call a thought a spirit that cannot survive death. The Spirit of God, the kingdom of heaven within, has no relationship to death. It has no even relationship to surviving the death of the physical body. It is there. It is timeless. It has no beginning and no end. So the very idea of even of the spirit surviving death, I have to say it only for explanation purposes, see? Only what you have now, here in this life, that is real, that, now I have to use the figure of speech, will survive death. But look, you've died already if you have, by understanding that death is the exposure of the illusion of thought life. Again, you took that with thought life, and thought life says, how can I continue myself? Should we meet 7 nights a week? Good, so.
My thought life is so much my whole being that when I look in the mirror and see a mortal body, it's surprising because I'm never here. I'm always gone in my thoughts.
All right, experiment. Go ahead and look at Stella for you. Anyone, it doesn't matter. But look at Stella. Go ahead, okay? All right, you see female, you see a certain age, you see blonde hair. See, now look. And you hear her talk, and you know where she was born and where she lives and the car she drives. And you say, that is Stella, right? Okay, now that is Stella. All right. Now, look inside her mind and go further than that. You've heard Stella talk, and that is Stella. That's the way she behaves, right? She dances well and all that stuff. Okay, now that's Stella. That's not Stella. That's ideas about Stella, even her own ideas about her. Now look, can you do it? Can you disassociate all associations you have? She's a certain height, she's blonde, the whole thing. See, I'm closing my eye, I'm blocking you out. Can you block out all temporarily, as an exercise, all ideas about Stella and see something there as a center, a human being who's here on earth who can become something other than Stella? Don't name it. You can't think your way into understanding of what I just said. Why do you, well, for convenience sake, you have to say that Stella, but I know better. I don't believe in her or any of the rest of you. I'm not going to believe in ideas about you, words about you, experiences about you, because I know that is temporary. I know that is time. And I know it's necessary to have a name while you're here on earth. But my spirit understands that any human being who has a name can have that name socially, but have no name at all spiritually, and that is what has eternity. See you later.